So hello everyone, I'm Dr.Bálint, or Bálint Nagy if you wish, because I'm a Hungarian, but here at IBS of course we speak English, so I'm Bálint Nagy. I've been teaching here at IBS since 1995, that's just unbelievable, that is 17 years. I joined the school when the first fourth year cohort started year 4. Actually, I was asked by Oxford Brookes to work on the marketing communication module because I'm teaching marketing, and at that time I was only teaching marketing communication, and then I designed the module. It was back again in 95 and started teaching at IBS, and since then I'm teaching here marketing communications, plus since I've joined IBS as a full-time employee, that was 3 years ago, I'm also teaching marketing of services and potentially anything which has to do with marketing. And I'm the head of the marketing department as well. I started my career in 1985 with the Hungarian airline, which is Malev, and which doesn't exist anymore. And when I'm just saying this, it reminds me that I've worked for quite some brands which since then are extinct. So it's kind of scary that where I worked and where I made some brand developments, sooner or later those brands for some reasons just disappeared from business. Well, actually, Malev was, as I told you, the first company I worked for. Actually, I also was a flight attendant. Here you can see, well, that's already maybe for a museum. That was my cap once long ago, that I was doing some onboard service. And here you can see a plane, maybe one of the last airplanes. Of course, it's just a mock-up, which I brought from the airline as a memory. So that was my first workplace. I worked there for 6 years, and I was responsible for branding. At that time it wasn't called branding, but let's say it's kind of corporate identity question. Actually, I was heading the transformation of the corporate identity. At that time there was a great change in Malev's corporate identity to this present design which you see, and I was leading this transformation process. Then I joined BBDO, that's one of the biggest advertising networks in the world. It was in '91 when they started the operation in Hungary, and they were called BBDO Budapest Marketing, and I founded the office. And after 1 year, 1 year of operation, which was I think which can be considered successful, they decided to merge with a local company that was a kind of well, dying out of the original brand again. But actually, when BBDO in Hungary, at least, became extinct was a couple of months ago, at the beginning of this year, when they merged with one of the other big advertising agency chains, and that's DDB. So BBDO, as such, in Budapest at least, it doesn't exist anymore. Of course, worldwide, they're still one of the most popular and most prestigious agencies, advertising agencies. Then 3 years with IBM. Well, IBM I think will never ever get extinct. It's one of the most powerful and most reputable brands I think in the world. I just love it. And then afterwards I spent 11 years in the Hungarian telecommunication business. Originally it was called Matav. I have some very old t-shirts here. This was here you can see the original logo of Matav, which I changed after a couple of years to this. This was the new emblem and the new logo of Matav. It was a great work. Don't forget that it's still one of the biggest companies in Hungary. At that time it was the second biggest company after the state railway. And I introduced a new corporate identity there as well. The branding remained, and then Matav was sold actually to Deutsche Telekom and Ameritech, an American and a German company, and the whole brand identity and brand changed. So Matav as a Hungarian brand became extinct again. So another brand where I worked died out at the beginning of the 21st century. It was around 2004, if I remember well. And then I decided to finish with my let's say practical career, where I thought I was going to finish, but I was asked to join Vodafone for a year, 1.5 years, to do some restructuring of their corporate communication, which I undertook, and I think it was a successful 1.5 years, but it was enough, at least for a while, from the corporate world. And then 3 years ago I joined IBS as a full-time employee and as responsible for the marketing department here. And since 3 years I'm working here at IBS full-time, and I'm happy with IBS, spending my 17th year here. Asking me about my perfect day, well, I hope I've managed to live as many perfect days as possible, but well, a real perfect day I think begins with a big swim. I like doing sports, and I like water sports, especially I used to surf and sail, but I don't do that anymore. What remained is regular swimming, which I love very much, so a perfect day has to have some kind of swimming in it. And then, well, of course, we're doing this chat for a school, so I'm obliged to say that my perfect day also includes some students and some classes, and that's true, actually. I like to teach. I like students, or at least I like many of the students. And if I have, let's say, 2-3 hours of teaching a day, that's fine. I don't really like those days. It seldom happens, but sometimes it does when I have, let's say, more than 3 hours, like 5-6 hours of teaching per day, which is not that entertaining anymore at the end of the 5th or 6th hour, and I think that's equally true for the students as well. My perfect day probably also has to do with some good food. I like to eat, and preferably not in the evenings at home, because that's not healthy, but actually that's the way it usually happens. Because during the daytime I don't really have too much time, and actually the opportunity to eat something which is really special or not the usual stuff. So I think that's mostly the parts of my perfect day, plus some music. I'm a big music lover. I like all kinds of music. I eat everything which is music, but when I'm speaking about the perfect day doesn't really, or isn't really imaginable for me without some classical music. Basically, Bach. Bach is one of my gods, maybe the most important person in my life among the not living persons. So probably he also belongs to my perfect day.